Welcome back to another episode of the Hardcore Casual with your boy, Bass the Kid. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It's appreciated. But listen, this is not going to be a normal type of episode. There's no segments. We're not constructing thoughts. This is more like an instant reaction, which isn't so instant. We are going wholeheartedly here. Obviously, background music, everything is the same, but this is basically like a live stream without the audience. But look, I had to jump on here. Early this morning, I was getting to the gym, and on my way back, I ended up listening to the Ariel and Ade show, which took place yesterday evening in the UK. There was a surprise guest on the show, Turki Al-Sheikh, who decided to go on and just drop bombs left, right and center. I needed to talk about some of the stuff that he went into. So first things first, we've been talking a lot recently about February and the 22nd of February, that card which is headlined by Better Biev and Bivol #2, and we saw the big list of the fights that took place. All right, so we had that, then we had Daniel Dubois and Joseph Parker, we had Carlos Adames and Hamza Shiraz, we had Shakur Stevenson and Floyd Schofield, we had Virgil Ortiz Jr. and Israel Madrimov, we had Joshua Buatsi and Callum Smith, and we had Zhang Zhilei and Ajit Kabayel. Well, the first thing that we find out from that card is there's actually now two fights which are no longer on there. Now, I heard something from Liam Smith say this yesterday on, I think it was a IFL episode, or one of the interviews there, but I didn't really pay much attention to what he said. I didn't quite make out what he was saying, but Turkey has confirmed there's two fights on that card that's now no longer there. And those two fights is Joshua Buatsi and Callum Smith, and Zhang Zhilei and Ajit Kabayel. But what Turkey has said is that those fights are now going to be moved onto a card that's going to take place in March. Now, because March is Ramadan in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, it's not going to be in Riyadh. He hasn't given us a location yet as to where it's going to be, but if I was to guess, based on those two particular fights and a couple of other things that he's maybe mentioned he would like to do for that card, I have a feeling it's either going to be a non-pay-per-view card for Riyadh season in either the O2 Arena in London or the new Co-op Arena in Manchester. If I had to hazard a guess, that's what I assume that those bouts will take place. So that's the first thing. So for everyone who had been complaining about a 7-fight card, 12 round fights each way and stuff, now it looks like it's just a 5-fight card with 5 12-round bouts on there. So of that, we now have one undisputed title fight. We have 2 other world title fights, and we have 2 interim title fights. I believe that's correct. So Carlos Adames, Hamza Shiraz is WBC middleweight. Shakur Stevenson and Floyd Schofield is WBC lightweight. Oh no, 3, sorry, because Daniel Dubois, the IBF heavyweight title with Joseph Parker. So 3 world title fights, 1 undisputed fight, and then 1 interim fight, which would be Virgil Ortiz Jr. and Israel Madrimov. Outside of that now, there was more truth bombs came out. So they asked, well, why is Virgil Ortiz Jr. fighting Israel Madrimov? And Turkey said, well, there was 3 names that was put forward, right? So you asked me about those names. The first one was Jaron Boots Ennis. Turkey said, I didn't speak to him directly, but there has been no communication from the team for a little while, and they stopped taking my calls about the fight. So what can I do? So right now, I'm sorry, the name's gotta change. It's not Boots Ennis no more. Right now, it's Jaron Barefoot Ennis. at best Jaron Socks Ennis, because at this point it's going to be very, very hard to come away from the stench of quote unquote duck talk. Now, the one caveat you can possibly give to someone like Boots Ennis is that you can't really duck someone that's not actually in your weight class. So if you want to run with the narrative that, you know, well, I'm a 147 guy, well, how can I duck someone that doesn't campaign in my division? All right, that's a bit of a safety net, it's a bit of a safety blanket. But unfortunately, as I had said on Fight Talk Live over the weekend, which I'm hoping that a lot of you guys did see, you had Jaron and his dad both basically out there saying that they, well, oh yeah, he's looking to move up to 154. It looks tasty up there. I'm ready. I want to take on anyone from 154. You know, 147 isn't, I'm not saying I don't make the weight easy, but I'm getting older. You know, maybe it's time to move up. Now, yeah, anyone can change their mind, but when you be out there talking so big and so bold the way that Jaron and Bozy do, you're gonna get held to that standard. And after we've already seen and heard the fact that you were ducking the smoke when it came to Terence Crawford, when BLK Black Prime came into the picture, like all of those that's out there. As much as you lot say that you wanted that Crawford fight and you was begging for that Crawford fight, everyone knows to the contrary, that's not the case. Because Crawford was the WBO welterweight champion and you were fighting in IBF eliminators. So how do you then claim that you want to face Terence Crawford? It makes no sense whatsoever. But that's besides the point. That's in the past. But now we've got fresh allegations. So I think if we're going to be honest, and I think Eddie Hearn let it slip. Basically, you know, Eddie likes to talk a lot. I'm probably just getting tired of asking the same. He said that fight, we were going to do that fight, but it was probably a month or so too soon. Ideally, we would like to do the fight in maybe sort of March or April would be a better time for him to come back. So 4 months later, rather than, I guess, what, 2.5, which is what it would have been. So 10, 11 weeks. If that's the case, all right, cool. But now the pressure and that pressure cooker on Socks Ennis, Barefoot Ennis, is gonna be mounting. Now we have to see where you're going next. Are you gonna be in the unification bout that we're expecting? Because anything less than a unification at this point is not gonna suffice. Like, you can't, even a Conor Benn fight wouldn't suffice, and they're not gonna put you on him and Conor Benn in the ring anyway. But you best be fighting Barrios next, or Stanionis next, or Brian Norman next. Even if, you know, you could say, oh, well, they're not necessarily quote unquote sexy fights, or they're not the biggest and the best fights out there. Cool, but they're unifications. And at least at that point, you, with every single one of the champions in that division not actually winning the belt in the ring, every single one of them was elevated to a title, you've at least got to clean up one of them to say that I at least beat a champion for a belt. And I don't think I've ever been in a situation where in the welterweight division, not one champion actually won the belt from a champion. Like, that's actually insane. But yeah, and I don't even think anyone won a vacant title. I think they were all literally elevated to full champ, which is crazy. Like, yeah, that's really, really mad. But, you know, such is life. Okay, so that's that part. Then he said, okay, well, Sebastian Fundora. Well, Sebastian Fundora and the PBC supposedly said, well, Sebastian can't do this fight because he's locked into a contract. We're just finishing off a contract for the Errol Spence fight. So then I'm like, okay, so, well, when particularly would that fight happen? I mean, Errol Spence doesn't look like he's particularly training right now. We don't know who he's training with per se, but it can't be in March because Gervonta Davis is fighting Lamont Roach, unless you're going to do a you know, like a 2-for-1 special, which is probably going to cost you way more money than you can afford. Although if it's a PBC pay-per-view, then possibly. But then the guess is probably April, because it can't be May, because you're not going the same month as Canelo. What are we looking at, June? So you're going to have the guy out of the ring for the next 4 to 5 months. So both of the guys are going to be coming off of these extremely long layoffs to get into this fight, which is going to actually be a unified 154 pounds weight fight. It just seems mad. So the PBC have blocked that one. Then it was Terence Crawford. So he said that Terence Crawford is nursing a little injury. He's nursing a little health scare. That's what he said initially. Now that may have been, a bit of a language thing, but health scare doesn't particularly sound nice. He said he has small injury. He wants to be back maybe from May onwards. So that's when he's going to be looking. So you say, okay, May onwards. What's May? That's normally Cinco de Mayo. That's normally Canelo times. Is that maybe what we're looking at? I've seen some things online where some people have said that they're heavily in negotiations to try and get that fight over the line. Personally, I don't think if that fight happens, it would happen until the September date. And maybe, you get someone to do a little bit of work beforehand. But with him saying that he won't be ready until May, probably they might try and force it onto that earlier card now. But Turki also said he has no direct contact to Canelo. He doesn't know anyone that knows Canelo like that, but he would love to be able to just speak to Canelo one-on-one, have a dialogue, just the two of them, no intermediaries in between. I doubt it will happen, but it also can't be outside the realm of possibility, especially at this time. So that's the three reasons for the three people that Virgil Ortiz said that he wanted to fight in Riyadh, and that's the reasons why they are not there. So then we get to Israel Madrimov, who's now is actually the fourth. And what Turki said in this interview, this impromptu interview, because he just called in to clear up some rumors. He basically said that he didn't want to put out the fight card, the fight poster, with a question mark next to Virgil Ortiz's name. So ultimately, what do? I see who is available, who's looking to fight. Then he said he spoke to Israel Madrimov and said, you have fight on December. How would you feel about fighting also in February? Like Muhammad Ali used to do, like Mike Tyson used to do. They would have one fight, then they fight 2 months later. They have like 4 or 5 fights in a year, like in their peak times. And then Madrimov said, if I come out of that fight healthy and with no issues, I'm happy to have another fight. So Turki has said that win, lose or draw, Israel Madrimov will be in that fight provided he is not injured afterwards. Now, I would assume if he were to possibly lose that fight, an injury will appear from somewhere. If I'm gonna be cynical, I'm assuming that. But they also said they have options. And they have many options. I'm sure they do. And he said, I don't want to say anything now because it's late. I've not slept for, he said he slept maybe 4 hours in the last 5 days. And he doesn't want his phone to blow up now with more people looking to talk. But Riyadh season, everyone will know that we will have a backup plan if he can't go. My assumption is the backup plan will be Eruslandi Lara at 160 pounds. And if Madrimov doesn't come through the fight on the 21st of December in full health, they'll probably will say, Lara, all right, you're drafted in. You've had the date. You should be, keep yourself active. And then now camp starts for that fight. That's my assumption. I'm not saying it's correct. But that would be for obviously the WBA middleweight title. So I guess we'd have to wait and see on that. So yeah, there was no talk of Xander Zayas, but that's okay. So it was true when Virgil Ortiz's team said, well, look, there was several names put to us. We said yes to all of them, but there was other names ahead of you. So Xander was clearly the 5th. But yeah, the news on that is win, lose or draw, Madrimov is in that fight. He says Turki said he doesn't care if he even if he loses, purely because he feels bad that he made him face Terence Crawford so early in his pro career, and obviously to lose his title so early. So in that sense, he wants to almost, repay him with other big fights for big money and to put him back into a position to win another world title. So that's that. Now, the last piece of thing I'm going to leave this with, well, there's 2 bits actually, but I'm going to go through this next part real quick. So you've got Obviously they were speaking about Zhang and Cabello, so that's going to take place on the fight card in March. Martin Bakole potentially could also be on that fight card for his IBF final eliminator with at the moment I think it's FA Ajagba. Obviously that could change if FA doesn't want to take it. They asked Turki why, you know, Bakole wasn't considered for this card, and Turki basically said he didn't want to put he thinks Bakole will go on the new card that's coming in March, possibly maybe after that, but he doesn't want the IBF to just call another mandatory while there are still other plans in place, you know, with Dubois and AJ and Fury and Usyk, etc. So basically he's strategically saying, well, no one else is going to pay for this fight but me, and if that's the case, we will wait until after Daniel Dubois had his title defense, and then probably after the moment where we've now been able to give him or put him and arrange another fight, then we do that. Then you can have that fight. Then you can call the mandatory for after the fight that we're doing, which it's insane that you get that level of control and power, but it's a genius move. Like you hold off on the mandatory, you block that off, you stay, you keep that to the side, boom, 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 and then you only unleash that once your other plans have already been signed and documented, so they can't call the mandatory because another fight's been signed. Masterful work. I got to applaud him for that level of, because he said, look, the IBF is always causing problems with the plans, so that's how they get away from causing the problems. I can't fault that at all. So yeah, Bakole will potentially be on that card. But what he also said is that he said there's 3 people that is looking at the rematch between Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury. Those 3 people is Daniel Dubois, Anthony Joshua, and Vladimir Klitschko. Now he said if Usyk were to win, then, you know, there's no way that Klitschko will face Usyk, because the people from Ukraine never fight each other. They won't want to fight each other. But if Fury wins, Klitschko will potentially be first in line for him to speak about trying to get a title shot. You know, he'll probably have to do some maneuvering about it, and get the opportunity to be the oldest ever champion in history. You know, taking George Foreman's record of, I think, is 44 or 45. But yeah, obviously he's like, everyone wanted the Klitschko rematch with Fury from 2015. We would love to be able to deliver this if Fury were to win the fight. So that's not even talking about another undisputed with Daniel Dubois. That's Fury and Klitschko part 2. And then I guess maybe Daniel and AJ. I think AJ will then be in line to face the winner of Zhang and Cabello, the WBC have said. So that could all lead to there, which could then possibly free up Daniel Dubois to do something else, or potentially he might be the second in options for Tyson Fury. But if Klitschko wanted to take it, then it would be Dubois, and then AJ will take the other fight, and then from there, whoever wins that will then get the shot at whoever the champion is at the end. So all of that together, like, it's a big, it's a lot to process, it's a lot to take in. That's why I didn't even want to do no segments. We're just delving and diving into it. Now, the last nugget that he did leave is that he will, he said his intention is to do a card in Africa. It won't be one in March, but between 2025 and 2026, there will be a Riyadh season card in the continent of Africa somewhere, as Ade's been totally campaigning for. So shout out to him. But in May, there is a potential that he is looking to do either another 5v5 with Eddie Hearn versus Frank Warren, Matchroom versus Queensbury, or a potential 6 versus 6 with Matchroom and Queensbury versus Golden Boy and Top Rank, UK versus USA. Now, he didn't state whether it would be UK fighters only versus USA fighters only, or whether it's just the UK promoters versus the US promoters and whoever they've got on their rosters. But if that happens, that is, that's a Allied Nations you know, United mega powers split right down the middle. That's a break, and that would be a beautiful thing to watch. I don't know where it would take place. It probably would end up being in Riyadh or like neutral territory, even though they don't necessarily like to do things outside of the Riyadh season, but they have done over the last year. So we have to wait and see. But yeah, I'm giving all of that to you guys right now. There's way too much for me to properly process thoughts. So what I will do is potentially do another video either later on today, or maybe drop one tomorrow, just breaking down some other parts, and we can kind of go through it. But I want you guys to give me your thoughts and feelings on what you've heard, like the big news that's dropped, and ultimately the fact that, you know, I said, unfortunately, Barefoot Ennis he's got a lot of pressure on his hands right about now. So yeah, great things are ahead, especially you know, as long as Turkey is around, we're going to be getting a lot of talking points on the channel and beyond. But listen, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share. That's the Hardcore Casual out.